Like, subscribe, follow. Let's go.
That's my baby. That's my baby.
We're going at it at 110%.
I just want 5 minutes of happiness, please. Just give me 5 minutes.
And they scored! They did it!
Left, feet left.
What the hell was that? Oh, yeah!
What the fuck are you talking about?
Hey, everybody, welcome to A2DRadio.com Lazy Booking Friday afternoon edition. Happy to be joined by our special guest this afternoon, Mr. D'Lo Brown. How are you, D'Lo?
What's going on, guys? Great to talk to my South Jersey brothers. I'm doing great. Let's have some fun.
Yes, absolutely. Happy to have a South Jersey brother in here with us, and we're going to talk to D'Lo about career. We're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about Impact Wrestling. We're going to talk about his WWE run, Attitude Era. We're going to talk about the AEW and Impact working relationship that we're seeing right now. But first and foremost, we got bills to pay. We got to keep lights on, and we want to pay some love to those who help us to do that. Many of us right now with mental health and addiction, major issue in this country. Us and our families, we deal with mental health and addiction issues, and we're happy to support the Counseling Center and Sunrise Detox. So for you or yourself, if anybody you know needs to reach out somewhere, find out what your options, get that help that you need, please reach out to the Counseling Center and Sunrise Detox at 856-651-8117. Also, happy to be with, where are you moving, Frank? Get us going. There we go. Specialized Physical Therapy, our doctor, Dr. Paul Vidal. He is in Burlington and Cherry Hill, New Jersey. He's the best in the business. He's our doc. No appointment necessary. So check him out, specializedphysicaltherapy.com, and get yourselves in peak physical condition. Also, Body Check Wellness, bodycheckwellness.com. Promo code A2D is going to get you 20% off. And oh, by the way, when former Philadelphia Flyer Riley Cote joins the Hockey Happy Hour, they have another special pack for 40% off. So make sure you guys check these, and make sure you guys are checking out bodycheckwellness.com. And if you're looking to buy or sell a home, looking for a change in career or brokerage, contact Alan Foy at eXp Realty LLC at 302-682-8820, or you can visit him at alan.foy@exprealty.com. And hey, this is brand new, guys. We're introducing A2D memberships, $9.99 a month. You get a lot of perks that come with it: appearances on shows, members-only streams, shout-outs, and I'll tell you, these guys are the best. Money Pot Podcast. You want to make some money? For all you gambling junkies out there, weekly sports picks with Nate and the guys from Money Pot Podcast. It's only $9.99 a month. It's an awesome package. Make sure you guys join us over there for the A2D membership. Listen, let's jump into our topics of conversation. And talking a little bit before we got on, we said that we have an agree to disagree conversation we want to have. So, you know, right now you're working with Impact as a wrestler, producer. You're working commentary right now, doing a phenomenal job. By the way, I love your intake on everything like that. But right now, with the relationship with AEW, it brings upon a question, and we actually talked about this a couple of months ago with Nate Aldis, the NWA World Champion, and that was different promotions working together is best for business. Agree or disagree? With what we're seeing now with you guys there at Impact and AEW, it's almost starting to bring back, and you know, New Japan and all these different companies starting to work together. It's almost bringing back the old territory days. Mm-hmm. And it feels great. It feels refreshing. It feels like seeing matches like, you know, amazing talent like you guys have in a Sami Callihan or Moose, who I have been the biggest fan of Moose for years. I just think the physical specimen, you know, he just breeds world champion to me. Mm-hmm. To be able to finally see those kind of dream matches, what would it be like to see, you know, a guy working his style against a Kenny Omega, considered the quote unquote best in the world? And and having those opportunities to do that. How do you agree or disagree that this is what's best for the pro wrestling business?
I completely agree. This is what's best for pro wrestling right now. You've laid out the benefits of this in terms of dream matchups. I mean, think about it: Moose versus Okada, Eddie Edwards versus Okada. Think about those kind of things. Think about Deonna Purrazzo versus Britt Baker. I mean, these fantasy booking matchups you can have in your mind. You wouldn't have that if there were those invisible borders between companies. So right now, I think it's a renaissance for wrestling to have this open door policy where we can, in one show you have a Kojima here, you have Kenny Omega on an Impact television show. I mean, I think that's amazing for business.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback of the times that we're in right now, right? It's there was a concern not that long ago, right? We were talking about you couldn't travel very much just a few months ago, and now things are different. There was a major concern that independent companies or not the worldwide companies on a WWE basis may struggle to survive the pandemic. And looking at how this is kind of we're coming out, I love the term that you used, renaissance, because it really seems like there could not have been a more important time to almost kind of realize that working together is the best benefit to be able to make everybody move 10 steps forward for the business. And would you say at this time, because I feel like it has suffered a lot, D'Lo. People have felt like a lot of the mainstream product has gotten stale. And a lot of it is we're seeing the same matches over and over. So, how much does this really affect that ability for all of these companies? And we're here in WWE now might be open to doing this as well. I mean, listen, if everyone else is getting on board at some point, I think you have to, but do you believe that this is going to be a new rejuvenation in the wrestling business, as you had kind of spoken about? We look back at years like the Attitude Era, the Golden Era with Hulk and Andre and those kind of guys. Could this be something we look back and say this goes right up with all those eras?
I think we're at a defining moment in wrestling right now because we all had a similar goal that was to survive the pandemic and to come out the other side better. And so you look at things, what's best for business, and what was best for business was working together. In that, it allowed companies to stay, strong and stay relative and stay out there. And then it added a whole new mixture to things by mixing things up again and creating all new matchups and all new situations that would have never been seen before. So I think, and I use the word renaissance, and I don't use it lightly, I think the business is changing and evolving, and now the world's opening back up, and I think everyone is going to reap the benefit of what we've gone through the last, 12 to 18 months and the way we had to relook at our business model.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more, D'Lo. I'm really excited to see the direction that it seems like the business is starting to go. I want to talk about yourself. I want to talk about your career, D'Lo. Fascinating career. You have been a part of some of the biggest eras and some of the biggest factions in professional wrestling, some of the biggest moments, I think, in professional wrestling. So early on, listen, you started locally around here. And something I was not aware of, but I did do a little research. I was not aware that your first name was, or your name that you were given was actually Jobber in a match early on in your career. How did that come about?
It was a Larry Sharp joke.
Simple enough, right?
Yeah, I had a couple names in the beginning. It was Jobber, Ace the Animal. My favorite was AC Corner, and I did that on WWF TV. And the reason that happened was Pat Patterson looked at me and says, "Tonight you're in a tag match, and tonight I want you to be your last name and stand in the corner." And that was AC Corner.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, man. And it's so funny, too, right? When you hear so many of these great stories years later about, how did this name come up or this and that. And a lot of it seems to be, some of it's ribs, some of it's inside jokes. It's great. moving on. So you got to work in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. You worked with, and rest in peace to him, New Jack, one of the real iconic figures in professional wrestling, and especially in this area for the ECW faithful in this area, who today it is still as relevant as it ever was. Can you talk about what the experience was like in Smoky Mountain and working with the gangsters and Mustafa and New Jack?
I've said it before. For me, Smoky Mountain was my going way to college. It was me learning my craft and getting that secondary education. And I got to have the world of wrestling taught to me in a different way, that Southern style by Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson and Tracy Smothers and Dirty White Boy and Jim Cornette and guys like that were showing me the Southern style, which made me a little different when I brought that back, up north and or made it to the large stage. And so that was just studying it. If you can't learn in a locker room full of those guys, that's a you problem. If you can't learn there, that's all on you. And, moving on to Jack, the reason why Jack was so beloved is because he was real. Like what you saw out there he was the realest brother you could ever be around in terms of, I can't convince you that what I'm doing all the time is real. I can't convince you that I'm not beating the hell out of that guy. But when it came to Jack, when he spoke, when he walked to the ring, and when he hit somebody upside the head, you want, I don't know, but that's real. That's as real as it gets. And that's why Jack connected. Jack connected on that level. And to me, Jack is one of my most special friends. He's with me in my heart right now. And, I speak to his wife on a regular basis, even to this day. He's one of those guys that there's a big hole in my heart for him not being here anymore. And he's another one who gave me a whole nother education, because a brother coming from the Northeast going down to the South, you had to learn real quick how to live life. So without Jack, I don't know if I could have survived down there.
Wow, yeah. And there's so many stories about him too. I mean, he could be an intimidating person, but there's stories about how he would play video games with like the neighborhood kids and different things. He's one of those guys.
If Jack loved you, there was no better person on this planet to have standing next to you and having your back. If Jack hated you, run, because there was no person you wanted to have your enemy more. Jack was extremes, and ironically, he was extremes. I'm one of those people that was lucky enough that Jack, Jack and I had a great relationship, and I had a friend, a protector, a mentor, and now I look at it as I probably have a guardian angel too. So if something happens to me, he'll come down and hit somebody with a trash can.
And he won't be afraid to make that long dive down too to do it either.
No, he's ready to make that dive now.
I mean, one of the real great guys, and honestly, he's so renowned around here. And every time that when you did signings and stuff, I think he was one of those guys who people, and I'm really glad that Vice did get to tell his story, and he was able to be a part of it. Like you said, not a guy that you necessarily want to cross, but when you finally did get to meet him, he's one of those guys that if you never met him before and it's your first time, you're very intimidated because you don't know what to expect. But you walk away from, you're like, wow, like what a totally different experience than I thought. He's a really, really nice guy. So, we're definitely gonna miss New Jack. What a legend. But you got to work in Smoky Mountain. You eventually started to work your way up north, and you get to you start working up towards WWE. You end up in OVW a little bit. But can you talk about your initial call from the WWE that kind of got you, obviously moving up there?
Yeah, I was in Puerto Rico, and I was down there for working with Carlos down in World Wrestling Council. And then we were coming home on Christmas break. And so I got home, and, this is 95. So this is like right at the beginning of cell phones. So you don't really use them because they're expensive. And calling from Puerto Rico wasn't cheap. And we were living on, all of us down there were living on the same 25 cents we all had. So we weren't going to spend a lot of money making phones. So when I got home, I wanted to do the rounds of people I hadn't talked to in a while. So I gave Jim Cornette a call, and I said, "Hey Jim, what's going on?" He goes, and I can hear his voice. And I goes, "D-Lo, where the hell you been?" And I was like, "I've been down in Puerto Rico." He goes, "Hold on," and click, he hangs up on me. And I go, "What the hell?" I thought Jim and I were in a good place. What's going on? And then 10 minutes later, he calls back, goes, "Hey, can you be in New York this Saturday? And do you have a suit?" And rule one of wrestling, always say yes and figure it out afterwards. So I said, yes, I can be, and yes, I can. I can get a suit. I have a suit. Okay, I'll have I forget it. Susan from WWF Travel call you, and I go. I'm sitting here with my phone in my hand. I go, I'll talk to you later. Hang up. Click. WWF Travel's going to call me. Okay. So then I look at my girlfriend at the time and I go, "Hey, babe, I need to go get a suit." So I ran down to the Goodwill, invested $40 in that black suit, and Shotgun Saturday Night was that debut. That's the night I got Pearl plunged by Ahmed Johnson on top the Lincoln, and the rest is history.
Yes. Wow, yeah, iconic moment in your introduction into one of the greatest factions of all time, the Nation of Domination. And we saw a couple of different versions of the Nation of Domination, starting out obviously with Farouk and Savio Vega and Crush, and then you had what were they? With Wolfie D and Ice T. What was their tag team name?
PG-13.
PG-13, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously it eventually formulated into Mark Henry joining The Rock, The Godfather, all that. But you come in and immediately you're now in a faction working with one of the great legends of the business, Ron Simmons. Can you talk about what it was like to work with Ron?
I can't even put it into words. Ron has always been someone I always want to be like. He was on TV as someone who looks like me, who I could attain to be. He was a world champion. I was there tonight in Baltimore, Maryland when he won the world championship.
Wow.
So then, like 5 years later, to be standing next to him in the locker room and I'm about to go to the ring with him. And it just, he and I had instant chemistry together, and he took me on like a son, like literally wrapped his hand around me, his arm around me, and said, "Let's go." And from that point on, if Smoky Mountain was getting my college education, being next to Ron was getting my master's degree, because that's where I got the intense learning of 3 hours a night driving in the car, having my matches broken down, telling me I could have done this or think about this or try to evolve your character, be more than just the bow tie guy, try to find ways to stand out. And this was all advice from Ron. Ron's big thing was, don't just stand in the background, find a way to be noticed. You're not here to just be a bump guy. You're here to get a long-term job. You're here to show people you belong. And so he taught me different ways to think about wrestling, ways I still think about wrestling to this day. Like when I do clinics, I'm just repeating Ronisms. I'm just telling people what Ron told me. So to be next to him, to stand next to him, to learn from him, that is probably the greatest privilege I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, I mean, when you hear people such as yourself who have accomplished quite a bit in the business, and you hear, Mark Henry, another guy that we love and respect so much, and Dwayne Johnson talking about, The Rock talking about, even to this day, The Rock continuing to talk about the lessons that he learned from Ron that make him the guy who he is now. And obviously JBL talking about him. It's just, he is a very, very special athlete and a special guy. And he's a guy that I'm happy that, I always felt as a kid that I felt like he flew under the radar, and it almost took the Attitude Era for people to kind of really, truly recognize how special he was. But when you go back now and you watch what he did in WCW, watch some of those matches he had with Vader and Ric Flair, I mean, they are phenomenal matches that stand the test of time. And I'm happy to see that, Ron is recognized, for more than just the damn reference. He's being recognized for who he really, really is.
I mean, to me, if you want to measure Ron's career, Definitely don't look at the damn thing because that's just the icing on the cake.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the quality of match he performed every night. Look at the quality of promo he performed every night. And then look at the amount of wrestlers' lives he's touched, inspired, and helped create. And if you look at all that, Ron is one of the greatest men this business has ever seen.
And there's nothing else to add to it because you're spot on with that. There's no other thing to add to that. But you guys had the original run with the Nation of Domination, which, again, Mark joins, and you guys have The Rock that joins, and eventually, The Rock, we know that the Rock starts to kind of build that man who we know today.
He started getting a little big there.
Yeah. He starts to build up, the ego blows up a little bit there. He eventually becomes the leader, and you guys now become what I think is, and it's no disrespect to the original run but when The Rock took over, and particularly when you start to see the dynamic of your character growing more, Mark Henry starts to develop his character more, the Attitude Era is really kind of ushering in and letting you guys be more experimental and creative. This Nation of Domination run is so iconic. Can you talk about at that time how your character began to evolve into, the real deal now and the head shake and all of that?
Well, it was a product of being around, and the reason why the Nation did so well is because we were friends off camera. We always traveled together. We stayed at the same hotels. We ate the same restaurants. So we'd have a lot of time to talk. And then, Rocky was very focused on what he wanted to become, and that work ethic kind of spilled over. And as you saw Rocky climbing the ladder and you saw the trail he was blazing, it's like, okay, he's showing himself character-wise. He's having more than just good matches, because just good matches doesn't get you elevated up. You have to have that total package. So you're looking at Rock, and then it's like, okay, Mark and I we have to let our characters evolve and become something people could recognize and something people want to either love or hate or both, given the circumstance. So that was a fun part, because you had mentioned earlier we were allowed to go out there and make mistakes, but we would learn from those mistakes. It wasn't like you didn't get punished for making a mistake. You learned a lesson from it. And having that safety net, the ability to fall and get back up and now run faster because I'll never make that mistake again. And each time you pick up momentum, and next thing you know, Rock's wrestling with Stone Cold. I'm battling with X-Pac. Mark is falling in love with China, and now we're all part of the TV show, and there are parts of the Nation taking up over an hour of a 2-hour show, and it was probably the greatest time to be around, because it's like confidence is contagious, and when the company shows that confidence in you, then you step your game up, because first thing you're thinking is they believe in us. They believe in me. They believe in what we can bring to the table. They're putting us out there for large segments of time on national TV. This is a good thing. So you put your head and wrap your head around that, and now it's like, now I got to be better. Now I got to improve. I got to find more. Okay, I got a catchphrase. A head shake. I got to find something that's going to set me apart. So your mind just starts thinking. You create a process, go off like, what can I do to keep reconnecting to the people? And before you know it, now you're walking out to these huge ovations or these huge boos, and you're getting in more and more high profile matches. It was a fun ride.
Oh, it was. And I mean, at this time, obviously you said, like you were talking about, confidence breeds success, and you start to see, you're a 4-time European champion, an Intercontinental champion. You held both at the same time. Mm-hmm. One of a handful of people to actually be able to do that. I want to ask you a question, and something that you kind of touched on a little bit, but and this was specifically a question that was actually sent in for us to ask by Nick Stask. And so you came from the Attitude Era, and when we talk about every moment feeling meaningful, whether you were in the main events, you were in the mid-card feuds, or you were the opening matches, it felt like everything that everybody did, there was a purpose to it, and it was meaningful. So for somebody like yourself, who you may not have been in the title picture, but you had success hovering around a lot of those mid-card titles, the secondary, I hate to say secondary titles, but the titles right under the world championships, right? And you have built a legacy that stands to this day. You have a fan base of people who continue to gravitate to listen to you talk on Impact, you know, and come out and see. I think one of the issues we've seen now for a lot of people with today's pro wrestling is, okay, we can build some main event guys, but everything mid-card just doesn't feel as important anymore, right? The Intercontinental title feels almost like it's a secondary thing. It's just kind of, you know, something to put on somebody to say they've held a championship. But what advice would you give somebody who may not be in that main event card yet, main event picture yet? But
Uh-oh. Internet went down.
Uh-oh.
You froze.
There he is.
I'm back.
There
Sorry.
we go.
Sorry. My apologies. What would you say?
Live medium.
You know it.
Things happen.
Like you said, it's all about bouncing back from issues and mistakes, right? But how would you advise somebody on today on what things that they could do to, okay, maybe you're not in the main event yet. Maybe you may not even ever get there, but how this is how things that you could do to create your mark in the business. You can become relevant and do this and that and have your own kind of, you know, build your own legacy.
The advice is simple. Own whatever time you're given on the show and make it the best you can. And if you go out there and you honestly work as hard as you can and you put on the best showing you can for your fans and for the promotion you're working with, then both the fans and the promotion will respect what you're doing out there, no matter if you're in the main event or the opening match. And if you talk about like secondary titles, and I don't ever fret about being a secondary title, because I think, and I'll compare Attitude Era to Impact today. You don't just buy one of our shows at Impact for the main event. You buy it for the entire show. So everything from the first match to the third match to the main event has meaning, has merit. The World's Championship feels just as important as the X Division title, because each one has someone vying for it, just like the Tag Team Championship means something, just like the Knockouts Championship or the Knockouts Tag title. So bottom line is, own your moment. Never let a second slip by that you're out there in front of the people and or on camera and go, well, I'm not in the main event, so I'll phone it in. That's a wasted opportunity, because if you put in a good, honest effort, if you do that every time, people will never forget you.
I totally agree. And you know, you are, again, you're such a great example of somebody who, again, was kind of that just under that mark, but you made such a memorable mark. We have so many people that are commenting in already with some of your greatest catchphrases. People who I know, we have people who are regulars and people who aren't, who have maybe they watch our sports shows, so we're here to come in and watch D'Lo Brown talk on A2D radio. So it says a lot about what you've been able to accomplish. And it is frustrating sometimes to see, particularly with some of the bigger companies right now, who the focus is so main event driven that we've lost some of the ambiance of the Intercontinental Champion and the legacy and lineage of what that meant, being a tag team champion, and what it is to honor a real legitimate tag team. So I think you're absolutely spot on about that. And I'm actually really excited to get into it shortly to talk to you about Impact, because I love a lot of what Impact does for the reasons mentioned there. But so you have your singles run, you start making, you start to win, some of your first few titles in WWE, one title in WWE. What was it like for you?
I missed the question there. Your internet faded again.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was it like when you won your first singles title in WWE? What was that moment like for you?
Oh, dude, it was the European title, and it was against Triple H. I had the help of The Rock. And if you look back on my reaction, I'm smiling ear to ear. I'm jumping up and down. I'm screaming, I'm the champ of Europe. And those were all real emotions. Like, that was real. That was my 11-year-old kid wrestling fan inside of me who's been watching forever and got a moment to be the center of the wrestling universe for that moment. And I loved it. And I got in the back, and I remember Vince Russo telling me that he thought I had it in me, but that night I became a star. And I was like, wow, that was like the most important thing I ever wanted to hear at that moment. And then I remember going back to the hotel room and just looking at the European Championship, and I was like, this is my world title. This is the most important thing to me, and I'm going to let everyone know this belt means more to me than anything because it's the one I have. And that's why no matter what belt I had or what belt I was challenging for, it was the most important title to me in anywhere in wrestling at that moment.
I believe it was Jeff Jarrett you defeated for the Intercontinental title, correct?
Yes, it was Jeff Jarrett. I had won the European title the night before from, I believe it was Midian maybe. And then the next night on Raw was Jeff Jarrett. And now that was a surreal moment because I literally, you kind of get to a point where you can't celebrate all the time in the locker room. So I remember going back to my hotel room and I went to my bag and I pulled up the European title and laid it down. And then I laid the Intercontinental title right above it. And I remember sitting there for probably felt like hours. It probably could have been 30 seconds, but it felt like hours.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, forever my name is going to be part of the lineage of these titles. And I was like, how awesome is that? How freaking awesome. I couldn't even believe I was looking at both of them at once. They're in my room. They're mine. And forever, I'll be there next to Shawn Michaels and Pat Patterson and British Bulldog and William Regal. I'm going to be right there forever. And that's a pretty cool moment when you sit back and you think about it.
When I think about your career, and there's been a lot of really great moments, I don't know that, and I'm talking ever on Raw, one of the biggest pops I can recall ever seeing was you winning the Intercontinental title. And I could still visually see you in the corner cheer, celebrating and just watching the crowd go insane behind you. Because it was a very, very cool, very surreal moment. And it was almost maybe even more so than your European title victory. I felt like that was really the D'Lo Brown has arrived moment.
I thought that was the coming out party. And while you're looking at the people behind me reacting, I'm standing in the corner looking at all the people reacting because I want to take every second of it in because you don't get those moments often. And I think people react in a good way because they didn't expect me to win it. And when I did, there was like a sense of relief for me. And it was a sense of, let's celebrate this because we saw something that we didn't expect to happen and was kind of a shock. And man, and that's not, it's not bad from a guy who was a bad guy, 6 months earlier to get that kind of reaction from the people. So it's one of the moments that it's burned in my memory. I a lot of it blends together, but moments like that, it's like a moment stuck in time right here.
Love that. I love that. You have your run there. You and Mark have some of the best almost comedic spots too. I mean, let's be real. The relationship between you two in front of the camera clearly displays how great of friends you guys were behind the camera as well. Mm-hmm. You just can't have that kind of a dynamic without a realism to it. Can you talk about what it was like to, when we talk about birthing hands and Mae Young and all this crazy stuff you guys had going on? Can you talk about what that time was like for you two working together and really just, again, if you talk about the in-ring part of D'Lo Brown coming out party, to me, this was the Mark Henry D'Lo like personality and character abilities between you guys. So can you talk about what that time was like working with Mark?
It was so cool because, Mark and I were best friends to this day. I mean, literally, I call Mark right now. I mean, I talk to Mark all the time, and we were just guys who, there was a lot expected of Mark. There wasn't much expected of me, but we were going to make it work. And we had such great chemistry. Like all the stuff you saw on camera was stuff people saw us do in hotels and driving down the road and in the locker room. And it's like, we need to get this on film because you two are hilarious together. And it was being ourselves. We weren't out there acting. We weren't pulling up a scene. We were just being D'Lo and Mark having fun. And oh, by the way, there's a camera catching it. And we meshed, and we just had that chemistry. You can't fake or create or give people. It's either there or it's not. And Mark and I were lucky enough to have it in the ring, in the locker room, and in life.
Yeah, I mean, it was so clear and obvious. At this point, we can start to get pretty close. I mean, we talked about that you worked with Chaz briefly, but you start to kind of wind down your WWE career. Mm-hmm. You end up moving over to Impact at the time, yes. TNA. And you've had it's ironic that I not that long ago was watching some of your matches with AJ Styles and whatnot, and you really had some really, really great in-ring matches and feuds with some talent at TNA. And when you look at what TNA, at the point where you had first gone there, I mean, you talk about a breeding ground for talent.
Yeah.
And those mid-2000s to, 2010, 2011, the talent that came out
mm-hmm.
of TNA is insane. A lot of it now is what's the standard now in pro wrestling. When you look at the AJ Styles and the Bobby Roodes, mm-hmm. Guys who people didn't necessarily ever think were going to be quote-unquote WWE type material, who are absolutely standard bearers now. Can you talk about what it was like? You're a veteran coming into a locker room with a lot of these young guys. And I think Kurt Angle might have been there at that time or came shortly after.
He was on his way in, not too far after, yes.
Right. So, you guys are kind of coming in now with this young roster and almost, in that position now to start to nurture these guys to start building the future for pro wrestling. Can you talk about what it was like to work in TNA at that time with that caliber of young talent?
It was pretty awesome to walk into because when I first decided to go down to TNA, I didn't know what was going to be down there. I did not see, because when you're in the WWE bubble, you're kind of there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I didn't really know all the talent. I'd heard of AJ Styles, but not really seen him work. So, or I'd heard of a Bobby Roode, or I'd heard of James Storm. So you get down there and then you see it was like a breeding ground of young, hungry, upcoming talent. It reminded me a lot of the early days of Attitude Era where like nobody was going to tell us anything. We were going to go take our spot. We were going to take over the world whether you liked it or not. And then when you go out there and you watch the quality of matches that were being put on every night, throughout every show, it's like, man, I thought I was going to come down here and I could just rest on my laurels. No. I got to up my game because these young cats are going to catch me and pass me, and I'm going to be standing by here looking at them. So it's like, let's go. And then when you get a chance to work with a guy like AJ, and you find you full disclosure, you can tell if you have chemistry with a person the first time you touch in the ring. Instantly. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's either there or it's not. And literally from the first time AJ Styles and I locked up, you might not have seen it. Maybe you did. I had a smile from ear to ear. I was like, this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. And the only other person I ever felt that with like that was X-Pac, where it was like you just knew you could have a match in a phone booth and everyone think it was 5 stars.
Yeah.
So AJ was the same way. It was like you lock up and it's like, okay, let's go. And it didn't matter if we were working against each other, with each other, or as a tag team. We were going to go out there and show everybody how well we work together. And man, that locker room, you look at it now, that the seeds of that locker room are all over the business right now, all over the business. And I consider myself fortunate to be there at that time.
That's amazing. And I can remember too, a lot of people at that time, again, there was such a stigma on what is a WWE caliber person was what was supposed to be the standard, but You know, I think a guy like AJ who went over to Japan, and you worked in Japan yourself, over and to Japan and was able to leave Impact at that time and say, hey, I can do this in Impact. It's not just in this bubble. I can go anywhere and make myself a star, make myself a name. And he did so over in Japan. It shows. And guys like Samoa Joe, who I think were long overdue for their opportunities. And you did have a chance to work in Japan. What was that like for you?
That was another level of cool there, because I'd always been a Japanese wrestling fan from the days I was a tape trader when I was 13.
I was going to ask if you were a tape trader.
Yeah, it was from the days I was a tape trader. So to see guys like, Misawa and Kobashi and Kojima and guys their younger generation like Marufuji and guys like that, to actually get in the ring and touch them, and it's a different level of work and appreciation over there. Whereas here in America, it's sports entertainment. There, it's still considered sport. It's right there next to baseball or sumo. There's wrestling is right there. So to have that level of appreciation and to have to go out there, and it doesn't matter if it was in Tokyo or a small little town somewhere south of Nagoya. You had to go out there and turn it on every night, and it was a different level of work. And, to say I got to touch some of the greats in this country and in that country, I've been in the ring with some of the best, and I can, once again, I use this term, I consider myself lucky because, none of this is promised, and I got to experience a lot of stuff.
You did. And going back to TNA, I have to say one of the, and it's funny because I almost felt like we may have finally gotten something that may have gone in that direction, and it did not work out well. When we talk about aces and eights, right? To me, one of the, and we've talked about it actually quite a bit on this program and our other wrestling program. I think one of the smartest factions and one of the best things that I thought that TNA and Impact had done in maybe the last 15 years, I loved the way that whole storyline was built, how you guys had all joined this group. And obviously the big reveal of Bully Ray being the guy who's pulling all the strings behind the scenes. It was just so well done. And I say that I thought, it almost kind of came back to relevance a lot because you looked at what WWE was doing with Retribution and thought maybe this could be like the next Aces and Eights, and on the WWE scale, and obviously it didn't work out that way. But I want to talk to you about that, the Aces and Eights group. How was that? What was it like with the behind the scenes with working with putting a lot of that stuff together? Because were you producing at that time as well?
I was producing at the time as well, yeah. And Aces and Eights to me was probably the most intelligently written storyline that I've seen in wrestling in a long time. From having the infiltrators that no one knew who they were, me giving Wes Briscoe a job in the gut check because it was my vote that brought him in, but yet he was one of the infiltrators that I was bringing into the fold. Bully Ray being the silent voice behind all of it, to having guys everywhere no one knew. I mean, it was Sons of Anarchy come to life, and I thought it was one of the coolest things out there. I thought it was, like I said, smartly written. The only thing is I thought it ended way too soon because I think it could have gone I think it could have taken over the entire – like it could have crossed over to mainstream. I thought Ace and Eights had that potential. And I remember we did a pay-per-view in Chicago, and I remember we're the bad guys. We're the heels. And we walked out, and Hoffman Estates, the arena there blew up, and just we were the baby faces walking out. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, not what I expected, but pretty damn cool.
Yeah, it really was. And I agree with you when you look at all the little nuances and all the little things, the little seeds, the Easter eggs that tied everything together at the end. It was so well done. It was patient. It wasn't something that was rushed. They took their time to develop it. And I have to say, it was definitely, even beyond Impact, one of the best, well put together factions in years. And I agree. I do think that kind of ended a little bit early. But I want to talk about now a couple of things I want to talk about with Impact currently. So right now you're doing producing.
Mhm.
You're still technically in ring and active. I haven't seen you do anything in a while in terms of Impact. I know you're doing some other stuff, and you're obviously you're doing the commentary and doing a phenomenal job with that. But
Thank
let's
you.
talk. Absolutely. I want to talk about Impact because I really feel like, especially D'Lo, through the pandemic, I feel like a lot of people realized over the last few years some of the creative intelligence that Impact has put out there. One main thing was the cinematic presentations, right?
Mhm.
That it seems that, when we saw things with, the final, the I think it was the final deletion, and then some of the things you guys did with Broken Matt Hardy originally,
Mhm.
how other companies started to kind of see little things that you were doing, and even to this day, right? I see, and I don't, no disrespect to WWE, but just even the little twists and, like you said, Easter eggs, like the trash bag with Mickey James' name on it,
Mhm.
hilarious. When Taya Valkyrie, Frankie Monet was leaving, and Tommy Dreamer makes the comments about, she's,
Mhm.
when they talk about her sentence, I'm sure she's going to go up for 3 or 4 or 5 years up north or something along those lines.
Yeah.
It's, you guys are so creative and brilliant in a lot of that stuff, and a lot of it too is the talent level that you guys have, the exhibition, how deep that is. The win to me might be the best, or might be one of the best, if not the best, women's divisions, with your
Mhm.
knockouts division. But can you talk about Impact Wrestling today, and what is making that so successful right now?
And I'll put it in the bubble of the pandemic era that we're all living in right now.
Mhm.
Um, I think because of the way COVID changed the way everybody had to do business, it stripped everyone away from the bells and whistles. So no huge pyro, no big old stage, no glitz and glamour, and it boiled everything down to the most important points: is writing, talent, execution. And by far, and not just my opinion, Impact did that better than anyone else during this pandemic era. And it put a focus on, holy hell, look what these people are doing here. And then when you have great creative and you've got smart creative that are giving compelling stories, and you add in talent, and you mentioned the knockouts. By far the best women's division in all of wrestling. And then you look at the X division, which is something all to itself. And then you throw in bringing in outside talent. You look at us and you're like, wow, these people are killing it every night. Every time their show is on, it is good. And we provide, I think, a very smart show. And it just goes back to creative and talent. I think and look, this is no slight on anybody else in the business because I've been all around. So I'm not taking it out on anybody else. I'm just saying I know what we have in our locker room, and we put it on full display, every Thursday night. And I think people have noticed that particularly during this pandemic era.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing too, I think, to add to that is you guys aren't afraid to take risks. You guys aren't afraid.
No.
If something doesn't work, it is what it is. And you kind of, you steer left instead of right the next week. But you guys have been willing to go out and take those creative risks with things. I mean, listen, we saw Johnny Bravo get shot, and now he's a dealer at
Right?
in a casino inside of
Winter's
yeah,
Palace.
yeah, that's right. It's great. I love it. It's fantastic. But when you talk about guys like almost the lifers, the next generation of lifers, right? Before it was Samoa
Uh-huh.
Joe, it was AJ Styles and those guys. Now when I look at the newer kind of older guard, the James Storm is still there, but you
Mhm.
talk about Eddie Edwards and you
Yes.
talk about Moose, guys who
Yes.
continue to carry the flag for Impact. And you talk about how much they mean for the company and what their impact is no pun intended.
Mhm.
On the younger people, the younger guys and ladies in the locker room that you guys have right now.
Just like those who came before me, they set the example of what the standard is. This is the way you're a professional. This is the way you're a professional here at Impact Wrestling. And as the standard was set for me years before, the standard was set for that new old guard, like you said, like Eddie Edwards and Moose and James Storms, and they're now the ones that set the bar for everyone that is younger than them. This is how you go out every night. You lay it on the line every night, and you give everything you can. And there's nothing else is acceptable besides giving everything you got. This is how you are to be an Impact performer. This is how you are to be an Impact talent. And it's crucial that we have that old guard passing it on to the new guard, and that cycle continues again, because that's how this business grows and stays alive. And we have that in our Impact locker room like nobody's business. Like a guy like Rhino, who is a leader amongst men. He is a guy you follow because he's done it everywhere he's been. You know, he's in the locker room cheering on those younger talent like Trey Miguel or Chris Bay. You know, and that's how it's supposed to be. The old guard mentors the new guard eventually becomes the old guard, and rinse and repeat, do it again. So that's what we have in Impact that makes us special, I believe.
Yeah. And speaking of some additions that you guys have made over the last year or so, I look at the impact that Deonna Purrazzo has had.
Oh, golly.
I mean, when you talk about somebody that, you know, whether it's WWE or AEW, how you talk about the coup of coups, in my opinion, of women's professional wrestling, for anybody to get their hands on her and have her be the figurehead, you guys absolutely knocked it out of the park. Can you talk about what her impact has been in terms of impact and that women's division?
I got to tell you, Deonna Purrazzo is one of my, and this is no slight against anyone, she's just my favorite talent to watch right now, male or female. Like I watch her in the ring perform, and she does things, and and it takes for a professional to admit this. When you see somebody do something, you go, damn, I wish I'd have thought of that, or I wish I'd have done that. That's when you know what you're watching is special. You know, it's like it's like she is good. Everything, I say it all the time. There's no wasted motion. Everything she does is with a purpose. She knows 1,400 ways to get into that damn Fujiwara armbar. You know, and it's like, but she's so smooth and perfect at what she does. Her impact on our locker room, once again, it's setting the standard here, and then she sets it here, and then she raises it up herself, and she reaches back and she pulls somebody with her. Come on, girls, come on, guys, let's go. You know, it's not about just her being good; it's about bringing the entire locker room up. And you know, for me as a performer, when I go out there and see someone perform a hell of a match and turn it out, now whoever I'm with, we're gonna up the tempo. So now it becomes that friendly competition. And when you have that friendly competition, you just have a good show overall. And I think that's what we bring at Impact Wrestling all the time.
Yeah, I mean, she's magnetic to watch. Just the way that she talks, the promos that she cuts, the way she works in the ring, and she tells the story of the character, not just with the promo, but she's able to convey it exactly the same in the ring. It's amazing to watch. And I'm really excited to see what she continues to bring to Impact, along with all of the talent that you guys have. You got Slammiversary coming up.
Big night.
Big night for you guys. So what should we expect? I mean, it's the general question, right? The cop-out question, but what should we expect with Slammiversary?
And I will give you the answer. Expect the unexpected. Literally sit back, watch, and be entertained. And the one thing you know is we're going to be consistently good at what we deliver to the people, because that's what we do at Impact. And we're going to give you a show worthy of what you sat down to watch. We're going to give you a show that reminds you of why you love professional wrestling. We're going to give you a show that is worth your time and your investment. And that's what we're going to give you at Slammiversary and every show after that.
I know I'll be tuning in. I'm telling you guys, you got to take the time, watch Impact on Access TV. One of the best wrestling programs that you'll see, hands down, without question, week in and week out. I have to ask a sports question before we let you go here, D-Lo.
Go ahead.
So are you a fan of the Philadelphia sports teams, or have you ventured elsewhere?
Hell no. I grew up hating all Philly teams.
Oh, so
Yeah.
So were you like, Sixers, blew it again?
I was happy to see the Sixers implode. Sorry, Philly. It's true.
Oh, you were such a face on this program. You turned heel on us at the end, D-Lo.
Bro, that's what wrestling is. Half my career in Bayface, half my career I'm a heel. But now I can go out on a heel note. I am a Chicago fan through and through. Have been since I was 9 years old. Since the first time I saw Walter Payton run, I became a Bears fan, and then I just got exposed to every other, team in Chicago. And Chicago's my adopted home. I'm from Jersey, but Chicago's like my heart. I like that. I like the way that city is. It's tough. Mm-hmm. It's hard nosed. It's got the city. It's a city of broad shoulders for a reason. And I identify with that. So I was never a Bears fan because my older brother was a Bears fan, and anything he did, I want to do the opposite of. So that's why I don't like any of the Philly teams.
So you like Justin Fields? You like that pick for you guys? You got your quarterback finally?
Dude, I want them to take their time with him. I don't want to rush him. I've seen plenty of great quarterbacks with talent come out and get thrown out in the NFL and get ruined in the first snap of the first game or his first season. I think wait for him to be ready. If he doesn't know the playbook, don't just throw him out there to see what he can do and rely on his athleticism, because guess what? It's the NFL. Everyone is athletic in the NFL. So athleticism gets you this far. Talent gets you this far. Knowing the game plan gets you this far. So take your time. Don't rush the kid. But I will tell you this. I've been a Bears fan since I was 9 years old. I have never bought a Chicago Bears quarterback's jersey until 2 weeks ago.
I like it. I'm a big Justin Fields fan too, by the way. I think a lot of people were very skeptical. I think people slept on him in this draft.
I think people looked. People are going to evaluate people the way they want. I know what I saw. I saw him against Clemson. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is Clemson, and he's turning the lights out. So I think he's got the potential. Look, I'll put it on the record. If Justin Fields performs like the way I think he will, in 3 years, he will never pay for another meal in the city of Chicago ever again.
Oh, I believe it. And listen, I'll tell you, with the insanity and ridiculousness that we had with Carson Wentz here. By the way, I think should still be the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. I do too. I don't understand what's going on. That's a complete and utter disaster. But knowing we were making a change, and it's no disrespect to Jalen Hurts because he's a talented guy, and I think that he'll put the work in. I was on hardcore from the day the season ended, the draft Justin Fields bandwagon for Philadelphia. If we weren't going with Wentz, I wanted Justin Fields so badly. So you guys, I wish you guys a lot of luck this year in your season. I think that you guys got a great franchise, a guy who could very well potentially be a great franchise quarterback for you. And it's a long time coming for Bears fans. So
it's my whole life. It's my whole life. When Sid Luckman's still the most famous quarterback your city's ever had, there's a problem.
Well, for the right reasons, or you could go with the old what was it, Jay Cutler's for all the wrong reasons.
Jay Cutler don't care.
D-Lo, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. Much success and good luck going forward for yourself, for Impact Wrestling. We hope to see you back in the Philly area very soon. From whether it's one of the signings or you work a show around here, we're so happy to see that. Impact Wrestling and WWE. Are you guys getting fans back anytime soon? That's a question.
We're opening the doors for Slammiversary and the 2 TVs after that, so we're inviting fans back in. So it's a very exciting time for us. And ladies and gentlemen, quickly, Impact Wrestling Thursday night, Access TV, and it's not just Access. If you have the internet, you can watch Impact Wrestling, and definitely tune in to Slammiversary because I get the best seat in the house. So why don't you come join me so I can call the action for you?
There it is. And who doesn't want to sit listen? You just took an hour, sat with myself and D-Lo, got to hear a great insight on it, and you get the same insight, if not better, on Impact. So make sure you guys are checking it out weekly, and make sure you check out Slammiversary. And we want to say thank you to our sponsors. Obviously over here, we want to say thank you to Specialized Physical Therapy, Dr. Paul Vidal. We want to say thank you to Sunrise Detox. We want to say thank you to, sorry, Frank, I'm flying through them. Counseling Center, Sunrise Detox, Body Check Wellness. And make sure you guys are using that promo code A2D at Body Check Wellness. And again, thank you so much, D'Lo. We appreciate you. Take care. And you're a father, right?
Yo, yes.
Happy belated Father's Day to you, my friend.
Thank you, my man. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on. This was fun.
Yes. And make sure you guys check it out tomorrow. We have part 2 of Shane Douglas joining us at 11 a.m. tomorrow. For myself, for D'Lo, Frank Vespi on the 1s and 2s, Tom Arnone and everybody here at A2D Radio. We appreciate you guys. TGIF, happy Friday. Enjoy your time and take care.